Okay, so in this video I'm flying the Twin Otter, well, both Twin Otters by way of comparison. I'm flying the Twin Otter Extended in FSX and the RW Designs Twin Otter version 2 in XP11, and I'm flying from Stuart, which is where we last parked on this notional round the world trip, to Coola. I have the advantage of having payway sceneries for Coola in both simulators, so we'll take a look at that at the end point. I managed to lose the takeoff and climb out in FSX from Stuart, but we're not too worried about that. So we're going to jump in en route. So here we are in FSX. We just passed the first waypoint. Look on the GPS, we're heading for the second waypoint, which is at the bottom of this long lake over the top of an island. And then we're going to head off over the mountains towards Coola, but a lot of mountains to cross between here and there. This is FTX Global, don't forget. So the scenery is, I don't know, kind of bland. It's kind of what we'd expect. It's rolling mountains capped with snow, with what looks like some glaciers in between some of these mountain ranges. The margins of the lake down there and those kind of inlets and the little pools don't look great. This should be Global Vector which has given us those margins, I think. Well, we're not into Pacific fjords, so we're probably in between regions, and that means we would be on Global Base for the textures and Global Vector for the vector data. And don't forget, with FSX we've got this level of detail radius, so that's why everything really off the nose of the aircraft and beyond is looking a little bit blurry. You can see it popping as we get closer. The outline of the hills in the distance is sharp enough, but it's the textures that are, if you like, draped over those features that you can see popping in, and until they pop in they look just very, well, unsatisfactory. But that's the way FSX works. So we're just topping out now at 10,500 feet. We're still on nav hold. That scenery, well, it looks very different because we don't have all the snow cover, of course, and again because this is non-seasonal, or it's single season scenery with X-Plane, but it's pretty nice. I've got to presume it's the same mesh data, although this looks a little bit more rugged than the FSX scenery. So we're coming upon the next waypoint, which is an airfield. This is, what is this, CYXT, don't know what it's called, Terrace, British Columbia. Elevation 713 feet, so we're at 9,000 here, so we're 8,000 and some AGL. Got 161 miles to run to Coola. So we're back in the X-Plane Twin Otter. We've just made a stop over in Terrace Airport. We're just climbing out back to altitude, and we're going to be heading off en route again. That's the next leg of our flight plan. 160 or so miles to go to Coola. I've been mucking about and I want to regain the flight plan, and so I'm flying an intercept heading manually on heading hold, and looking at the GPS we're almost on the desired track. If I select nav mode now, we get nav capture immediately, and then what happens is it turns, I mean it looks like it's turning onto that heading, but it's actually not. It's turned onto what's, for all intents and purposes, a parallel track, and you can see the CDI, the bottom of the GPS display, is still displaced out to the left, and so that's wrong, and the error is slight in this case because we were almost on that track, desired track, when we dialed in nav mode, but that's just happenstance. If I were to do that again, if I put us back onto heading hold, turn us off to the right temporarily, we'll see that error holds good no matter how far we're away. Okay, so we're a bit further out now. If we flip back onto nav mode, again we get nav capture immediately. Aircraft's rolling left as it should do, and what it should do is it should turn us to flying intercept heading, but it's not going to do that. It's going to roll us out somewhat inbound of parallel, and the CDI now is basically, we've got full scale deflection. That 2.0 probably has some significance. Nautical miles off track maybe, something like that. So that clearly doesn't work, and that's consistent, that error, and it kind of makes navigation on the GPS very unreliable. So we're about 50 miles from the next checkpoint, just coming out over some more water feature again. This is FTX Global, and this looks like it's frozen, so we've got Global, I think, supplies the frozen water according to season, so looks like we could land on that if we wanted to. Don't think we'll do that. Otherwise the scenery's kind of similar, isn't too bad. Can't see much of anything at the minute. That visibility's closing down a little bit. Let's just check out another feature as we're going. We're not in icing conditions today, it's far too cold for that. Up at this altitude the temperature outside is pretty much minus 30 degrees Celsius. But if we were interested in anti-ice measures, we'd go up to the overhead and we'd turn on the de-icer boots, stick it onto automatic, put it onto fast, and then we'll see that we've got these pulsing lights that indicate that the de-icer boots, that's the only indication that the de-icer boots are operating. I guess if we were actually in icing conditions, we'd hope it would make a difference to how the aircraft flies. Now this system is powered by the bleed air, and the bleed air switches are down here, and you can see bleed air is on from both left and right engines. Here's an interesting thing: if we flick those switches off, those lights continue to pulse, which suggests that the de-icer boots are continuing to operate, which is wrong. If there's no pressure in the pneumatic system, that system shouldn't work, and indeed we do see the caution light for low pneumatic pressure. Now whether the operation of the de-icing boots actually follows what those lights are doing, who knows? I haven't been able to establish that since we're not flying in icing conditions. Another thing to point out in terms of de-icing, we can extend the intake deflector. This is to divert the air around an inertial separator so that we don't get any large chunks of ice ingested into the engine. Now what should happen is when we extend that on the panel, these two black squares here, these are actually indicators, often called doll's eye indicators. They swivel around and we should see a legend, I think it says EXT for extended, when the air scoop's open. That doesn't happen. Whether or not that air scoop actually operates or has any effect is unknown, but we do have a switch to extend it or retract it. If we just put in a direct to Bella Coola now. Okay, we're approaching Bella Coola. Got some descending to do. I've come off autopilot for now. basically going to chop the power and take us down. Looks very different to how it looked in FSX, but again, main reason for that is absence of the correct seasonal textures. Although it's still the winter, we've got, I think, pretty much summer textures here. So 4 miles away, there's the strip. In fact, let's just slow down here. There we go. I think we'll go to the other end and land in the opposite direction. That's runway's looking kind of glitchy. That airport isn't rendering particularly well. The airport settled down a bit, but not a lot. I don't know what that stuff at the margins of the runway. It looks like piles of rocks. The rest of the flaps out gradually. In fact, not so gradually.